Let's start with the most shocking revelation. Entire regions of Thailand are ghost towns. I'm not talking about remote villages. I'm talking about established beach resort areas that should be packed with tourists. Khanom, Koh Samui, parts of Phuket. These places are experiencing occupancy rates that workers describe as worse than COVID. And by the way, this is not me hating Thailand, not even close. I've traveled to Thailand multiple times and it is still one of the best locations yet. But this is the truth. One journalist walking through southern Thailand resorts described the scene as unsettling. Pools pristine, staff on duty, menus listing cocktails and dinner specials, but zero guests. Entire hotels shuttered, restaurants deserted, bars silent. Let's talk about what tourism workers are actually saying, because their complaints paint a damning picture. First, the money issue. A worker at Yotaka Resort explained it bluntly. Everything goes higher, but the salary is very same. Think about that. Food prices up, rent up, transportation up, but wages frozen. Tourism workers in Thailand are getting squeezed from both sides. Tourists are paying more, so they expect better service. But workers are earning the same or less, so they're exhausted and frustrated. And it shows. Multiple visitors report that service quality has declined noticeably. The warmth that used to define Thai hospitality, it's fading. One long-term expat who's lived in Pattaya for 3 years said, "I never saw a motorbike taxi driver or another working Thai smile. I've yet to see the land of smiles." Another visitor noted, "Service was still friendly, but there was a strain underneath. The same weariness seen in countless countries grappling with economic recovery." The famous Thai smile has become transactional. You get a smile when you're paying. The rest of the time, workers are tired, they're stressed, they're worried about making rent. And it shows in every interaction. One brutal comment summed it up. "Thais want your money, not you." Ouch. But based on what workers are saying, there's truth to it. When you're working 12-hour shifts for wages that haven't kept pace with inflation, and tourists are complaining about prices while tipping poorly, the warmth disappears fast. Here's where it gets really uncomfortable. Tourism workers are starting to resent tourists. Not all tourists, but specific types. One worker was caught on video saying Israeli tourists are the worst. Another mentioned frustration with tourists treating Thailand like a cheap playground. Multiple workers expressed jealousy that tourists arrive with pockets full of cash, while locals struggle to survive. An expat noted, "Tourism causes jealousy amongst locals. Tourists come with pockets full of cash to prey on their women. What could possibly go wrong?" This resentment isn't new, but it's intensifying. During COVID, when tourism collapsed, many Thai workers went back to farming or found other jobs. They survived without tourists, and when tourism returned, some of them realized, maybe we don't need this anymore. Now tourism is back, but it's different. The tourists have changed. Chinese tour groups are gone, replaced by budget travelers from India and Russia who spend less. Western tourists who used to be big tippers are going to Vietnam instead. The tourists who are coming are more demanding, less respectful, and spend less money. Meanwhile, workers are expected to maintain the same level of service for lower wages and worse tips. It's a recipe for resentment. One worker explained, "They got greedy, they exploited labor, exploited nature, all for money, and now there's a backlash." And that backlash is coming from the very people who are supposed to be welcoming tourists with open arms. When your waiters, hotel staff, and taxi drivers are exhausted and resentful, tourists notice, and they go somewhere else. Let me inject some humor here because honestly, some of this is darkly funny. Thailand markets itself as the land of smiles, but tourism workers are increasingly calling it the land of tired smiles or the land of fake smiles. One expat joked, "The Thai smile has many meanings: happiness, apology, courtesy, disagreement, and now, please tip me because I haven't been paid enough this month." Another visitor noted that the famous Thai smile is now more meaningful but fewer in number. Translation, you'll get a genuine smile maybe once per day instead of constantly. And the service? One tourist described trying to pay with a card at a small restaurant, minimum spend 200 baht. Okay, fine, but when he went to an ATM, the withdrawal fee was 250 baht, so he's paying a 10% surcharge just to access his own money. In 2025, when Apple Pay exists, He asked a worker why Thailand doesn't accept cards everywhere. The response? Blank stare. Or take the hotel occupancy crisis. Workers are literally standing in empty lobbies waiting for guests who never arrive. One worker described it as standing guard over a ghost town. Imagine showing up to work every day knowing your hotel is at 10% occupancy. Your paycheck depends on commissions and tips. And there are no guests. You're basically getting paid to exist. That's not a job, that's purgatory. And the hotels can't afford to fire everyone because if tourism suddenly recovers, they'll need staff. So they keep skeleton crews on minimal pay, hoping for a miracle. It's economic limbo. Now let's talk about the exploitation issue. Because workers are not holding back. Multiple tourism employees used the word greedy when describing what happened to Thailand's tourism industry. They say hotel owners, tour operators, and restaurant owners prioritize short-term profits over long-term sustainability. Prices went up, quality went down, workers were underpaid, nature was exploited. And eventually tourists noticed and left. One worker explained they exploited labor, exploited nature, all for money, and now there's a backlash. Here's how it worked. During the boom years, tourism businesses maximized profits by keeping wages low and cutting corners on environmental protections. Coral reefs were damaged by boat anchors. Beaches were overrun without proper waste management. Workers were paid minimal wages while owners pocketed huge profits. Then COVID hit. The whole system collapsed. Many businesses closed. Workers lost jobs. The ones who survived hoped things would be different when tourism returned. But when tourism did return, the same patterns emerged. Prices went up even higher. Wages stayed the same or increased slightly. Tips declined because tourists were paying more for everything else. And workers realized nothing has changed except we're worse off now. That's why the famous Thai smile has worn thin. It's hard to smile when you're being exploited. And tourists are picking up on this. They sense the resentment. They feel the transactional nature of interactions. And they choose destinations where workers actually seem happy to see them. Vietnam, for example. Vietnamese tourism workers are enthusiastic because their industry is booming. They're making good money. They're optimistic about the future. And tourists notice that energy. Thailand, workers are tired. They're underpaid. They're worried their jobs will disappear, and that anxiety is contagious. Here's another brutal truth from workers. Tourists have gotten worse. It's not just that fewer tourists are coming, it's that the tourists who are coming are less desirable from a worker's perspective. Multiple workers mentioned frustration with specific nationalities. One noted that Israeli tourists are difficult to deal with. Another said Russian tourists don't tip. Indian tourists are seen as budget-conscious and demanding. Chinese tour groups used to spend money but were exhausting to serve. Now, before anyone accuses me of being insensitive, I'm not endorsing these views. I'm reporting what tourism workers are actually saying. And what they're saying is the demographics of tourists have shifted and many workers are struggling to adapt. Western tourists used to be the gold standard. They tipped well. They were polite. They spent money. But Western tourists are increasingly going to Vietnam, Bali, or staying in Europe. The ones still coming to Thailand are often budget travelers or retirees on fixed incomes who can't afford to spend much. Meanwhile, the growing markets, India, Russia, Middle East, have different expectations and spending habits, and workers who were trained to serve Western tourists are finding it difficult to adjust. One worker summed it up. Everything has changed. The tourists, the economy, the expectations, but the pay is still the same. And when workers feel like they're being asked to do more for less, resentment builds fast. Let's address the elephant in the room. Workers are fleeing the tourism industry. During COVID, millions of Thai tourism workers lost their jobs. Many went back to farming. Others found work in construction, manufacturing, or service industries outside tourism. Some left cities and returned to rural provinces. When tourism reopened, many of them didn't come back. Why? Because they realized tourism work is unstable, underpaid, and exhausting. Why work 12-hour shifts serving demanding tourists when you can have a stable factory job with benefits? Thailand's tourism industry employs about 4.99 million people. But there's a growing labor shortage in certain regions. Hotels can't find enough staff, restaurants struggle to hire waiters, tour operators can't find guides. And the workers who do stay, many of them are migrant workers from Myanmar, Laos, and Cambodia. One article noted that most waiters and waitresses in Phuket don't speak Thai because they're not Thai, they're Burmese. So what jobs are local Thais doing? Government positions, police, bureaucrats. Anything that doesn't involve serving tourists. The irony is painful. Thailand's economy depends on tourism. But Thai people increasingly don't want to work in tourism. So the industry relies on migrant labor, which creates resentment among locals who feel their jobs are being taken and frustration among workers who feel exploited. It's a vicious cycle with no easy solution. Here's the part that'll really hurt. Some workers are actively hoping tourism declines further. Why? Because they think a collapse might force the industry to reform, to pay better wages, to treat workers with respect, to prioritize sustainability over short-term profits. One worker explained, maybe if tourism crashes completely, they'll finally realize we're not just smiling robots. We're people, and we deserve better. That's a stunning admission. Tourism workers hoping for the industry to fail so it can be rebuilt better. That's how bad things have gotten. And honestly, they might get their wish, because the numbers are grim. Tourism arrivals down nearly 10% in 2025, revenue declining, hotels closing, restaurants shutting down. Workers are watching the industry slowly collapse around them. And instead of panic, many of them feel relief. Because maybe, just maybe, this will force a reckoning. But here's the twist. Not all of Thailand is empty, and not all workers are miserable. Phuket, for example, just had its best high season in 5 years. Russian tourists are arriving in record numbers. Luxury resorts are thriving. Workers in upscale hotels are doing well because wealthy tourists tip generously. So Thailand isn't uniformly failing, it's fragmenting. High-end destinations are thriving, budget destinations are dying, and mid-range destinations are struggling to survive. Workers in luxury hotels earning good money and serving appreciative guests, they're fine. They're still smiling, they're still optimistic. Workers in budget hotels earning minimal wages and serving demanding guests, they're exhausted, they're resentful, they're looking for other jobs. The land of smiles is becoming the land of some smiles depending on how much money you're spending. And that's the uncomfortable truth workers are revealing. Thailand's tourism industry is stratifying. If you've got money, you'll get great service and genuine smiles. If you're on a budget, you'll get tired workers going through the motions. So what do workers actually want? I asked around. Here's what they said. First, better wages, not just minimum wage increases, but actual livable salaries that keep pace with inflation. One worker noted that minimum wage went from 337 to 400 baht per day in some regions. That's about $11 to $12. Try living in Phuket on $12 a day. It's impossible. Second, respect. Workers want tourists to treat them like humans, not servants. They want to be tipped fairly. They want polite interactions. They want their hard work acknowledged. Third, job security. Tourism work is seasonal and unstable. Workers want contracts, benefits, and assurance they won't be fired the moment bookings slow down. Fourth, better training. Many workers are expected to serve international tourists without language training, cultural education, or proper onboarding. They're thrown into the job and expected to figure it out. Fifth, environmental protections. Workers in beach resorts are watching the beaches get dirtier, the coral die, and the infrastructure crumble. They want their government to invest in sustainability so their jobs still exist in 10 years. And finally, honesty from management. Workers are tired of being told tourism is recovering when their hotels are at 10% occupancy. They want transparency. They want realistic expectations. They want their bosses to stop gaslighting them. None of these demands are unreasonable. But will they get them? Probably not. Because as long as there's a supply of cheap migrant labor willing to work for low wages, Thai tourism businesses have no incentive to improve conditions. Let me say something positive because this script has been pretty brutal. Thai tourism workers are incredibly resilient. They survived COVID. They're surviving this downturn. They're adapting, hustling, and finding ways to make it work. The workers who remain in the industry genuinely care about providing good service. They want tourists to have great experiences. They take pride in their work. And when they're paid fairly and treated with respect, they deliver world-class hospitality. Thailand's tourism industry, despite all its problems, still has incredible potential. The beaches are stunning. The food is amazing. The culture is rich. The infrastructure exists. The problem isn't the destination, it's the business model. It's the exploitation. It's the short-term thinking. And workers know this better than anyone. If Thailand's tourism industry can reform, better wages, better working conditions, better sustainability, it can thrive again. Workers are ready. They just need leadership that prioritizes people over profits. So should you visit Thailand? Absolutely. It's still an incredible country. But when you go, remember that the workers serving you are struggling. Tip generously, be polite, be patient. Treat them like humans, not robots. And if you can, support businesses that pay fair wages and treat workers well. Ask questions, read reviews. Choose hotels and restaurants that prioritize staff welfare. Your tourism dollars are powerful. Use them to reward good behavior and punish exploitation. And when you interact with Thai workers, understand that if they seem tired or less enthusiastic than you expected, it's not personal. They're just exhausted from years of being underpaid, overworked, and underappreciated. The famous Thai smile hasn't disappeared. It's just waiting for a reason to come back. Thailand isn't empty everywhere, but in many places it is, and the workers who remain are telling you why. They're underpaid, they're exploited, they're tired. The tourists have changed, the industry has changed, and the warmth that used to define Thai hospitality is wearing thin. This isn't a temporary problem. This is a structural crisis that requires fundamental reform. Better wages, better working conditions, better respect, better sustainability. Until that happens, expect more empty hotels, more tired smiles, more workers leaving the industry, and more tourists choosing Vietnam instead. The people working in Thailand's tourism industry are sounding the alarm. The question is, will anyone listen? Have you been to Thailand recently? How was your experience with service workers? Let me know in the comments. And if you found this video helpful, smash that like button and subscribe for more travel reality checks. See you in the next one.